Thank you very much. Good morning, boys and girls. This morning we're going to do one more lesson, and this will be the first of its kind, I suppose. However, I know you have done a lot of these lessons from grade 8 to grade 12, and we'll still continue doing them. There is nothing new. You must be able to remember that in English language you are basically learning about the same things from grade 8 up to grade 12. The same composition, the same structure, except that there is an addition in terms of topics that you are supposed to cover. However, today we are going to look at descriptive writing, that is a form of composition. As you know, there are a lot of different compositions that you learn. Some of them include situational composition, descriptive composition, narratives, and so on. So today's special lesson is based on descriptive composition. Okay, so this is the type of lesson that we are going to learn about today. And what type of composition writing? Descriptive what? Composition. Okay, so under descriptive composition, we know that there are a number of certain structural items that we need to learn, okay, about. What is a descriptive composition? In short, a descriptive composition is a composition that actually asks you to write a description of an object, a thing, a human being, or anything. It could be a building. How do you describe it? It means that for you to give a proper description, it must actually be a composition where you use certain terms that actually are going to help you in painting the clear picture of what you are talking about. Sometimes you talk about something that you've never actually seen, and you hear some people, talking about, I went to such a place, and you have never been there. They will use certain words which actually are going to help you get a clear description of what that particular place is. And those words are the ones that we call adjectives. Meaning that in a descriptive composition, you require to use a lot of adjectives. Those are words that paint a picture of what you are talking about in a descriptive composition. Okay, so under descriptive writing, or in a composition generally, we have to understand what actually the basic writing skills are. And among the basic writing skills, we include, okay, so when we talk about basic writing skills, okay, we include one, okay, handwriting. Okay, handwriting, okay, which is very important because handwriting gives us a clear picture of what actually you are going to present. For example, when you wear your uniforms, okay, you find that your uniform is supposed to be neat, and just by looking at your appearance, somebody will know that I think this is a very good student. So equally, when we are writing in composition, we need to ensure that we write clearly to ensure that our handwriting or the way we present our work is quite neat. Then the second point, apart from handwriting, should be paragraphing. Okay? Paragraphing is one of the most important, okay, things that you need to look at. Okay? How do we paragraph our work? We must indent our work. Our work must be indented, and we ensure that the space from the margin, okay, it must be wide enough to ensure that there is no problem with the reader, because the reader has to identify where the paragraph starts and where the paragraph ends. And we know that each time that you are starting a new paragraph or you're starting a sentence, there has to be the use of punctuations, okay? Under punctuations, there are so many. You start a sentence, for example, with a capital letter, okay? So we're talking about punctuation, very important. Under punctuation, there are so many punctuation marks that actually we consider. It could be use of capital letters. We know that when we use capital letters, it is the time when we are starting a new sentence. Or you use capital letters when you are introducing a proper noun, okay? Or when you are using, for example, when you are using such things as abbreviations, okay? We know that you use, and also some acronyms are used in form of capital letters. Then you need also to ensure that you must plan your work such that you know that when you are writing a composition, this composition is going to be in 3 major forms. You will have, first of all, the title of the composition. After the title of the composition, then you are going to have an introductory paragraph in which you are going to show or state the most important idea that you are going to discuss. Okay? And we know that in a composition introductory part, you have to make it short and clear. After the introduction, you are going to have the body of paragraphs, or in other words, which we call the main body. Under the main body, this is where now the main idea in the introduction is broken into separate components. The components that are going to make you write separate paragraphs. Remember that one idea in an introduction can be separated into several other ideas. So you break down the separate ideas into paragraphs. If there are 5 ideas, for example, that you want to talk about, it is not right for you to discuss all the 5 paragraphs in one paragraph. No. Okay? So each idea that you separate in a composition must require you to use each idea. Once you have explained that idea in one paragraph, then you must end there. Then the next idea that follows must actually go and start at a different paragraph. And that is by way of indenting. Now, when you talk about the same punctuation marks, we said that under this composition writing, because we'll have the title, okay? The title is very important because that is the one that gives us an idea of what you're going to write about. Then after the title, you have the introduction, okay? The introduction, this is where we bring out the main idea, like I said, okay? And this main idea should be brief. It shouldn't be long. Then, after the introduction, you have the body of paragraphs, okay? Body of paragraphs. So now we are saying that under the body of paragraphs, this is where now this main idea which we have introduced is broken into different mini ideas. Okay? And these other ideas now are the ones that are going to give us the different paragraphs that we are going to write about. Okay? So after that, we are going to have the 4th paragraph, which is actually, like I said, the 4th part of the composition, which is the conclusion. Okay, so the last part of the composition is the conclusion. Under the conclusion, this is where now you re-emphasize the point that you have raised in the introductory passage. And sometimes, as you end in your conclusion, you should be in a position also to give your own opinion, sometimes, where it is required. For example, if it is an argumentative composition and the like, you could actually also give your opinion just in brief, But the major point that you have to consider under the conclusion is the restatement or the restatement of the idea in the main, in the first paragraph of our conclusion. Then, once you have done that, okay, and these are things that actually we need to understand that we should do, ensure that we have the title of the topic, then we have the introduction, and it must be brief, and then we have the body of paragraphs. This is where you have got a number of paragraphs that depend on the ideas that you have brought up in that particular composition. So meaning that the number of paragraphs in this body of paragraph will depend on the ideas that you are discussing, because each idea must be discussed in a separate paragraph. Then apart from that, after you are done, then that is when now you conclude. To conclude, you don't bring anything new. And we must know that when we are concluding, there are certain structural words that we end up with. For example, you may use the words such as in conclusion, okay, or in the end. It means that you have ended your composition. So if you have ended your conclusion by saying in the end or in conclusion, it means that after the conclusion there is no more idea that you are going to talk about. So sometimes you find that we find ourselves in a situation where after we have said in conclusion, then you remember another idea which you didn't write, then you continue writing again. It means that you have not ended. So where you have ended, it means that that is all. So the length of the paragraph, pupils, depends on the amount of ideas that you are going to talk about. Sometimes we get worried about a situation where you find that you have written maybe the paragraph is only about 3 sentences or 3 lines. Then you feel, no, I think it is not enough. That is, if you have written as much as that, it means that is the amount of work that, or the amount of ideas that you have for that particular paragraph. So the length of a paragraph does not matter. There is no standard length of a paragraph that you are required to write about. It depends on the length or the number of ideas that you are talking about in that particular paragraph. Okay, so now when you are talking about this descriptive writing, like we said, it is a type of composition where we talk about a thing, an object, an idea, an animal, or an event, and so on. It is a composition where actually you try to bring out the color, okay, of the composition that you are writing about. Remember, sometimes you'll be telling stories about something that happened elsewhere, and then somebody would be interested in listening to you. Sometimes you do not even want to leave that place, okay? And you know, among yourselves, you find that students actually do, you share ideas or stories, and you'd always want to be, there next to somebody to listen to you carefully. Because, why? Because the way they are expressing themselves, the way they are explaining things, it means that they are using certain words which actually are catching your mind. And those words are the ones that we call the adjectives. So, remember, adjectives are words that describe nouns. Okay? So, we need to ensure that when we are writing a composition of a descriptive nature, we need to use a lot of adjectives. Now, what are adjectives or examples of adjectives? Adjectives could be words such as, for example, we may have words such as absorbing, okay, dirty, luxurious, adorable, filthy, admirable, large, remarkable, ordinary, luxurious, and so on. Okay, those are just a few examples of adjectives, which actually gives you a clear picture. And when you talk about descriptive writing, you find that you must bring out also what we call the idea of senses. Okay, sometimes if you are talking about a place where maybe a wedding that you have attended, you think of the colors that appeared, maybe people that were wearing. Okay, or maybe you talk about maybe the surrounding itself. Okay, you talk about probably other things that include, such as, for example, the smell of food. So when you talk about use of senses in descriptive writing, talk about the sense of touch, the sense of feeling, the sense of smell, the sense of taste, the sense of hearing. What type of music did you hear, for example? Okay, so the 5 senses must apply, must be described when actually you are writing a descriptive composition, so that it actually brings out, okay, the clear, okay, illustration or description of what you are talking about. For example, if you were to go outside and then I say, okay, can we, for example, we have even a tree, a plant nearby here. If I say, can you describe that plant? You are not just going to say, no, the plant has got green leaves. Okay? You are going to look at, for example, okay, where the plant is. You are going to look at where, for example, the plant is planted. Okay? And what type of plant. And is it in, for example, here it is in a flower pot. What color is the flower pot? So you may also look at, for example, the colors. Okay? How attractive are they to you? The type of leaves, for example, here. Okay? When you're looking at, for example, a description of a tree, okay, you will look at it, the size of the tree. You can also look at the shape. You can also look at, for example, the type of branches. You can look at the type of the leaves. You can look at even flowers. Okay? So all those things, when you talk about them, even if somebody had never actually seen that type of tree you're talking about, he will be in a position to say, I think it looks like this. And one clear example that I could probably give you, sometimes you are told, can you go and call such a person, okay, from your class. And you have never seen that particular person in your class or people in your class. But the one who will send you will tell you, say, no, when you go to class A, you will find a girl. Because there are so many girls there. Then for you to know who that girl is, you say that this girl is tall, light, and is wearing a red jersey. Okay? So immediately you go there. Those descriptions that you have been given are the ones that are going to help you to understand and say, okay, I think among the girls, okay, the girl who suits that description is that particular person. And straight away you would go and approach that particular person. Meaning that you would have been given nice descriptions. For example, words such as tall. Okay, if among them there are girls, but only that tall girl is there, you look at the height of that particular girl. You look at the type of clothes that she's wearing, red jersey. Okay, and what color, for example, of her face? She's light-skinned. And then among them, she's the only one who suits that description. It means you would have now actually seen that, okay, that is the particular person that I'm looking for. So under descriptive writing, we must ensure that whatever we provide, okay, or whatever we write about must suit, okay, what we are talking about. So that is about descriptive writing. Okay, so now having looked at the basic requirements of descriptive writing, now I will give you a question which actually you are going to write about. Describing. I know most of you must have actually even had gone to certain situations or rather events which actually, or maybe you might have beautiful things that you cherish, you want to be in the future. So now, the composition that I'm going to give you, which you are going to do what? To practice. And you must describe it the way you want it to be, according to what actually you cherish. So the composition that I'm going to give you as a homework is going to be the house of my dreams. The house of my dreams. That is the title of the composition that I'm going to give you. Okay, so if you have gotten an idea of what we have gone through the lesson, I would love you or I would like you now to go and write about the house of my dream, and then share it with somebody and see whether you would have described the house of your dream as you have been taught.